William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Great. Got the Cedars.
All right, we'll go ahead and start. So this is our monthly Crime Watch meeting for CBD, the downtown area, Cedars, Farmers Market, and Deep Ellum. I'm Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Adam Medrano. I host the meeting, all I'm going to do is pass it off to our Deputy Chief, Walton. So are you ready?
I believe I've got it, sir. Good evening again. My name's Scott Walton. For those of you who have not met me previously, I'm currently the Deputy Chief out at Central Patrol. Major Shed, who actually runs day-to-day operations, she had a family conflict and couldn't make it, so she works days. But we're fortunate enough here. We've got Robert Arredondo, who works evenings as the major, and Lieutenant Rick Rivas is here, who's our evening commander for CBD. We also have some other officers in the room. If you want to real quickly introduce yourselves. And
I'm Corporal Tyler Protro. I'm one of the administrators for the Facebook group, the Female Officers Corner. This is my co-patriot and partner, Officer Felto.
And cameraman, apparently.
And cameraman, yeah. AKA Michael Day.
I'm Casey Torrey. I'm a deputy with the City Marshal's office. I live and work in Deep Ellum, in primarily Southwest Dallas.
I'm Officer Bo Nally. I'm the interim CBD CEO. Our previous CEO, Saunders, was promoted, so I'm filling in the meantime.
So, and that's where promotions were today. We saw Matt make the rank of sergeant, so he has been reassigned. He is going to be working still at Central, but over on Hall Street, so he will still be kind of in the area, but not working CBD proper. He'll be working evenings. I've already talked to him and actually talked to Major Shed as well about some of the skills that he has built in his assignment here and making sure it gets used very well. So I'm really kind of looking forward to that, and I believe you'll all continue to see Sergeant Songer. So I am going to fill in for him tonight the best that I can. I am a poor substitute. I will go ahead and acknowledge that on the front end. So I'm going to go over some of the crime stats. I won't go over every number, but I will go over some year-to-date stuff and then look at some stuff compared to maybe last year as well as compared to the previous month, because, you know, I think we're seeing what it looks like in some of these, we're seeing some trending downwards. So let me talk about the city at large first, and then we'll dwell into Central, and then I'll get into some of the specific neighborhoods. So as far as crime citywide, when we're looking at the citywide crime, we're down citywide, which is good. We're down in both property and violent crime. I think we're sitting down around 3% right now. Unfortunately for Central, we're actually up as a division as we look compared to last year, but violent crime is down. What really is driving the crime at Central is our BMVs and our stolen cars. And so we have put together some operational plans to try to address both of those issues that have been in kind of in effect. And I think we're seeing some reductions starting to occur. But that's really, when you start looking at Central and where the crime is, that's where the big difference is. So let me get into some of the specifics, which I know y'all are really interested in. So I'm going to start with Deep Ellum, and I'm going to be looking really this year to date through June 30th compared to, I believe it was last year. So it's kind of like we're up aggravated assault, and this is where you start getting into numbers. We're up 1, but they've got it as we went from 9 to 10, so it's 11%. So that's where you have to be careful when you talk to people about percentage versus numbers. So it's a difference of 1 over a 6-month comparative period. But when we look at some of our property crimes, they're even. Like our BMVs down in Deep Ellum, they're even compared to last year, same time period, where we're seeing a lot more BMVs or some other parts of downtown where they're having constructions zones and they're breaking into vehicles, taking tools, things of that nature, and then some of the very high-end apartment complexes. But we're really not seeing it in Deep Ellum. So when I'm looking at our UUMVs, again, where you have a lot of cars, particularly on your entertainment districts, that's where we have one of our increases. We went from 18 to 27. And then when I'm looking at this month compared to the same month last year, so you can just say, okay, what do it look like last June? We have seen an increase in simple assaults by 5, so it went from 6 to 11. Those are not your felony assaults, that's just a simple assault. Our BMVs, this is where I think we're seeing some of the differences, or we've still seen an increase in 4 compared this month to the same period last year. But when I compare it to last month, BMVs have stayed about the same. So I think we're seeing a leveling off of some of that. In fact, the UUMVs, we've actually seen a decrease by 1. And that's where you can go, well, I've had a 20% decrease because we really went from 5 to 4. So we are talking real small numbers. So again, when you start talking percentages, even 1 or 2 make a big difference in a percentage. So when I look at the Cedars, doing our first 6-month comparison, so we've had, looking at the total of the first 6 months, we had an increase from 7 to 14 for aggravated assaults that weren't associated with family violence. We had an increase of 5 BMVs, 30 to 35, and the UUMVs, that's actually stayed the same. So again, as I'm saying, the division's seen an increase in those, but it's not really affecting the Cedars. That has stayed even at 20. Then when I look at this month compared to last month, the Junes, we went up 1 BMV, so it was 5 last year in June, 6 this year for June. We actually went down 1 for UUMV from 5 to 4. So one of the things I am encouraged about is doing some monthly comparisons, like the May to the June to the previous month. May, we had 1 aggravated assault the month before, and we had none in June. So that was good. And then there was a reduction of BMVs where we had 9 in May and only 6 in June. So that was a reduction of 3. Again, we're really putting some emphasis on the BMVs as well as some other things. And you also had a decrease in stolen cars from 5 to 4. And then once we look at the actually CBD, the core, what we're looking at is, the people that make these reports are much younger than I. They can actually, they can print at a font that's a little more difficult for me to read in less than perfect lighting. But what I'm really encouraged about is there was a reduction of 35 aggravated assaults. That's 21%. It went from 168 down to 128. I think that's really good news. Again, as I mentioned, what's really driving our crime is our BMV and UUMV. And so when we look at CBD, we've had an increase in 113. It's going to take a second for it to come into focus. If I look at you and look back down, I can't see it at all. I get it. So 113 offenses in your BMV. So that was already 1,140 to 1,254, it looks like. So that was an increase in 10%. And then your stolen cars went up by 89, from 398 to 487, which was an increase of, I believe that says 22%. And that's why we've been focusing on those two crimes together. When you look at Central as a whole, of the number of crimes that we're up, when we're looking at the Part 1 crimes, and you add up what we're up in UUMV and BMV, that's about what it is. You know, there's some other things that are just a few up and some other things that are a little down. But those are your primary changes in your crimes, what we've seen this year. You know, when we look at our BMV, still talking about CBD core, this year compared to last, there were 4 the same time period for this month, I'm sorry, for the month of June, for July. And there was only, actually they pulled this one up for the month of July, just a couple of weeks. We went from 4 down to 1. That's a pretty good reduction, and I hope that's a signal that we're seeing some of our crime initiatives starting to be a little more successful. So, and then we had a reduction, one reduction in UUMVs. So, I know that's a lot of numbers to kind of digest, but that's really not what it's about, is just talking about numbers. It's really about what your concerns are and what we can do to address them, so we can talk about some of the things we have already been doing that I think are starting to be successful. So, sir, unless you'd like to add anything, I really kind of want to open it up and see what kind of questions.
Yeah, we can. I just want to say that I had a meeting with, where's Philip? Philip? Oh, hey. The Deep Ellum Foundation, several, I'm trying to think, it was a while back. Who else was there? Who was it? John Etzel was there. Stephanie, the new executive director. Because I remember we talked about the crowd and the traffic and all that was going on. So we've kind of come up with the strategy to alleviate some of that. So we're talking to Uber and Lyft for spots for pickup and drop off, things like that. Do you want to talk about it real quick, if you want?
Yeah, sure. Phil Honoré, Deep Ellum Foundation Public Safety Manager. We listen to the temperature of what everybody's been saying in the neighborhood, traffic on Fridays and especially on Saturday nights, in reference to, you know, how many people are down there at any given time. With different events, could be hundreds, maybe 1,000 people or more down there. And Elm Street and Main Street can be really, you know, a bottleneck area when we have a lot of trucks stopping, delivery trucks, pedestrians walking in the street, and then we have the rideshare companies, Uber and Lyft, just dropping off, and Uber Eats just anywhere. So what we've decided to do is talk to rideshare companies, Uber and Lyft, and they have agreed to develop a strategy where we'll have drop-off and pickup points north, south, east, and west of Main Street and Elm, so people can get to the nucleus of the neighborhood in and out. Obviously, when businesses are closed, that will alleviate a whole lot of traffic. Also, I'm talking with business owners about night deliveries. I do work on some Fridays and Saturday nights where I've seen delivery trucks at 11 o'clock at night. So that also doesn't help. So when, just imagine if you have a delivery truck on a 2-lane one-way street, and then Uber and Lyft are stopping, and then obviously you have some venues there that are trying to get people out of parking lots. It can really bottleneck things up. So we're working with obviously the businesses on the delivery side and Uber and Lyft to alleviate some of that. Also, we're trying to work with the city with street markets. Like no street markets, ones with are really faded. So pedestrian walkways, crosswalks. Obviously, we need more stop signs in Deep Ellum. I really haven't knocked that tree down just yet, but we have some really dark spots. So we're also going to work on the lighting situation, especially in the outer areas, to try to address, where some of these break-ins, and the car break-ins, vehicle break-ins happen, and where we've seen past assaults of, obviously employees, residents, and visitors to the area. But I'm always open. I've talked to quite a few people already. I'm always open to have a discussion with everybody in the neighborhood, from the community watch page to the officers, about better ideas of what we can do to combat the traffic problem and help with keeping the pedestrians safe while we're at the point. So if you need to contact me, guys, most of you guys already know where I'm at. You can reach me via email. My first name, Philip, 2 L's, .honore, H-O-N-O-R-E. No, Philip, I'm going to give you my private email. First name, Philip, 2 L's, at deepellumtexas.com. Almost did. So, like I said, we're open to any suggestions. Talk to you about those contacts. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to end that because that was something that came up in the last month, and I just wanted to say we're working out, we met with some folks.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Okay, 2 things. Is it possible for the foundation and the offer somewhere to come up with some money for flashing lights at the pedestrian walkways, especially like on Main Street? Like over how they have near Baylor and also along Cedar Springs. Cedar Springs is really cool because you actually push the button and it'll start flashing.
Just so you know, we're taking those out of Cedar Springs.
Oh, they're really dark.
They don't think so.
Okay,
I want you to know, okay?
We'll take it. I've been here nevertheless for 4 years now.
You're definitely open to suggestions
Yeah.
about the pedestrian crosswalks. Also keeping, with the law and the character of the neighborhood, what we can do to make the crosswalks better. We have some areas that have crosswalks that are newer, but then on Main, they're not. So we want to get together and talk about some of those things right now. I'm very open to that.
Okay. And then also, I remember Theodore last summer, they were saying they could put signage up that had to be on private property and also on a street that wasn't going to block traffic. So I'm just curious what kind of ideas you all would have in mind as far as where these staging points are going to be around the community. They're going to cost more.
Are you talking about the ride share signage? Yeah, we have a plan to have. First of all, we have to have an initial. We passed an initial in reference to the areas we want. Obviously, those areas have meters on them already, so we really have to. The city really has to agree with, hey, these are good areas. It's not going to cause further congestion, and we can take up, removing the meters and being, obviously a VIP area where we can be dropped off and picked up, valet, and then so it can be exclusive for the ride share. Also, stage an area underneath the 30. I've talked to councilman here about maybe one of the parking lots and get some of those spaces. So we know at the airport they have a staging area. So the Uber drivers and Lyft drivers are in a queue, and people don't have to wait very long in order to get rides. They don't have to try to get someone that's all the way up, all the way out Bishop Arch or something. They already have Uber and Lyft drivers right in the area. So that's what we want to do. Hopefully it'll all work out. It's not, it's not gonna be a quick fix, but the discussions are happening and everything's positive.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I had.
Okay. Yeah, open it up and, yes, ma'am.
We talked several weeks ago at a neighborhood meeting about enhancing businesses. So one, for example, and I got this from the city attorney's office, disorderly conduct and public intoxication can be charged with a Class B misdemeanor if they've had 3 convictions in the last 24 months. So I think some of the nuisance crimes that we see in Cedars and some in downtown is the same people doing the same offenses. And I think it takes a lot of time for the DPD officer to have to deal with that person each time. What can we do as a city to pursue this enhancement of sentencing? But the other one is for a third theft offense. It can then be a state jail felony. So what do we have to do to use that tool that's already in our toolbox?
So I'm glad you asked, because it leads into where there's some officers in the back. I didn't see them, and I think they're trying to get smaller as they realize I'm about to. Officer Stinson, in particular, has, we talked after a meeting at the Cedars. There was a homeowners meeting or a Crime Watch group, and we started doing basically special assignment every day with officers going out there, and Officer Stinson actually went out with a paddy wagon and made 6 arrests with some other officers, and that's something that's continuing in the area, and they're aware of the things that you're talking about and looking for repeat offenders. And, you know, what I'm hoping to hear tonight from residents of the Cedars, they've seen the increase in activity from officers because we're doing stuff mornings, afternoons, evenings, that you've seen the officers, and also are starting to see some of the effects because I'm told that some of the areas where they were chronically hanging out, some of it's lessened, others hasn't yet, but, you know, we're still committed to continuing that extra enforcement effort.
The officers are doing their job, taking arrests, writing the ticket, writing the citation, but it's further along that the bottleneck seems to be happening. Or like one of the ladies that was cited or arrested for public intoxication a few weeks ago, Major Shed said that she said, "Oh, I'm not concerned. I'll be right back out tomorrow." So it's that kind of a attitude from the people that are committing the crimes. They're not concerned about any consequences because it doesn't seem that there really are that many consequences. So how can we get the city attorney's office to pursue this, or the DA's office to say, you know, let's look at this person. If they're arrested, you know, they've been arrested several times, are they pursuing enhanced sentences?
So, yeah, particularly like for thefts, you know, like if you have a shoplift or any other type theft, now I'm going to show my age a little bit in this. You actually had to call down to the jail and ask, did they have prior convictions, so you could use that, so you could go ahead and make an arrest versus writing a citation for another Class C. That was something you had to do, and if it was enhanceable, you enhanced it, and that was something that an officer did in the field. So will your, Officer Stinson, will your PI arrest, is that something y'all look at on the computer when you make come across that? Is that something they look at detox? Are you aware?
Are you talking about for enhancement purposes?
Yes.
I looked into this. Apparently, DPD, we don't enhance PIs because we don't have detectives to investigate them. State law, we're allowed to enhance, but DPD as a whole, we don't. And there's no way, no one keeps track of it. So basically, like we don't know if it's a PI unless, you know, if it's a warrant that shows it's a PI. But
so
there's no way for us to track it.
So let's do this. For our next meeting, let's have that as something that we come back with do a little more research on to see what that would take to meet the legal requirements and see if that's something that we can do.
As the citizen, but also as the officer, I mean, it's demoralizing to see the same person, you know, over and over committing the same offense. And if they knew, you know, they could get up to 180 days in jail for an enhanced PI, maybe that would make a difference.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
To kind of expand on that, so the Marshal's office runs the city detention center, which is it's called detox for short. We do hold them for 6 to 12 hours, depending on their level of intoxication. Usually about 6 hours, we go and check on them. If they show signs of improvement and that they can take care of themselves, then they are released. If not, then they can only be held up to a maximum of 12 hours. Prior convictions or enhancements is not something that's looked at, so hopefully that should give you some alignment. But yeah, they're basically out between 6 and 12 hours. And when they do that, they release them with a citation. They have 21 days to get it taken care of, or else that ticket does go into warrant status.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
To comment on the initiative in Cedars that is basically led by Officer Stinson, I believe that day she made 6 arrests, she did it by herself. There were no officers that came out to help her. It was her, the paddy wagon, and someone else who took notes. And that was my understanding.
Cool.
And that's what I've heard from other officers, is that they don't want to go to the Cedars because of the quality of life issues, even though they can pinch some guys that have felonies and warrants out. And I believe they caught the green towel bandit over at our calling. You know, that's in the Cedars. but I'm seeing a little bit of a dent, but I feel like it's all on the shoulders of Officer Stinson, who is doing it, going above and beyond, and that she's not getting the assistance that she needs. And that she's not getting the assistance that she needs because the officers don't want to help and they don't want to come to the Cedars. I've heard that with my own ears from officers. So I'd like some more.
Well, I agree with you that she is doing a great job in that area. So we actually talked about the paddy wagon and what she was able to accomplish. It was her, another officer, and a PSO that actually did that. So there were 2 officers there. And she's not the only one doing extra patrol in there, taking enforcement action. There are other officers doing it as well. So there are other people, but she's also an MPO, which really is kind of your neighborhood policing, where she truly takes ownership and takes pride in what she's doing in that neighborhood. And we've talked about it. We talked about it after that Crime Watch meeting, and she was very much, I really want to do something. And we were talking about, okay, well, even how can we do more with what she's been able to accomplish? But there are other officers taking a role, and they go out and do these, different enforcement or different sweeps. But it's not necessarily the same officer every day, where she's going to be much more consistent in her role in it. So.
I do just want to point out that there are officers who don't want to help because of the quality of life issues. I've heard it with my own ears on several levels, and the crime is there. I mean,
and I'm not disputing that, but
Cal Bandit, everyone wanted, was there.
It's police officers are like other people. We have police officers that don't want to work accidents. That's not their things, where others really want to work accidents. Or some people don't enjoy working down at CBD because different others. Other officers, they love working down at CBD. So there are going to be different levels of interest in what they do. I mean, that's just going to be human nature.
Like everybody wants to go somewhere else.
But it's not just you have an MPO, and again, that's the way the program's designed, where the MPOs really are kind of the quarterback for that neighborhood and making sure that they coordinate other city services, that they try to put together your plans of, okay, what do I need to address these issues? And everything that she's brought to me, I've been in full support of, going, yeah, let's do this. Look, believe it or not, I really want to make a really big impact in the Cedars, and we're putting our best effort out that, and we've committed overtime to that end, beyond just regular time officers. That is exactly what it's for.
Well, thank you for that. I just really want to take the time to thank you, Officer Stinson. You are amazing. I mean, she's doing amazing.
Yes, sir.
Jump on the same topic, and the initiative that you started down there, on particular that one street, Seeker. Saturday morning, I counted 52 people sitting there. And, when you first started, there was an immediate impact. There was 10 days when it was absolutely clear there. 10 days. But I think when people know that there's going to be no consequence for anything, they come right back. So I'm wondering if the sustainability of this can be enhanced by talking to the neighboring business who allows people to sleep under his awning. Because Friday night there were 32 people sleeping there, all of them drinking. And is there some way you can contact that property when it says you will be responsible for this mess? Because even when we were staying down there when Adam was with us, they just pushed the mess off his property onto the street. And then the street says, oh, we're not supposed to clean that. Sanitation is supposed to clean that. So it was 2 weeks of discussion between different departments of who would clean up this pile of garbage. So to keep this going and enhance your efforts, it actually has had an impact. It's a triangle over there. They come at 9 o'clock, they wait for the liquor store to open, they go to our calling, they have lunch, they do whatever, and then they spend the rest of the day over there between the street and this piece of private property. And I think the address is 2022 Seeker.
Okay.
And apparently he lets them sleep there, but that's where they are all day. So what can you guys do that can just enhance Officer Stinson efforts?
So-
The efforts are effective.
I'm sorry,
So I know the produce place or something?
Yeah.
So Jose, did they remove, the fence is falling down, there's those 3 big trucks that I don't even think that work there, have they removed them?
It's 2 different places. We are with 2022 Cedar, which is testing 2 addresses, one for the audience and for the parking lot. What we actually did, I actually reached out to the owner out of town. He's been out of town for 2 weeks. We should be returning later this week, and as soon as he gets back in town, we're going to communicate. We're going to go out there with Officer McIntyre and send some of the affidavit. Their staff actually went out Wednesday afternoon to clean out the parking lot and the awning. When we went back out there Thursday evening, all the trash, including the barbecue grill, was back on the property. So we're trying to get that criminal trespass affidavit to get him more active, especially in order to get that taken care of. That produce business right behind where the fence is falling down, we also issued that notice of violation for that, and we are going to pursue those 2 trucks that are parked back here at Illinois as well. In addition to that, the lots across the street where all the trash is being, we issued notice of violation, and we've actually put in a request for mulching and water and cleaning up. But you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned earlier, it's something that we have to keep pretty much on a regular basis. So I'll ask again this year for the next 2 months, and hopefully on it, they listen to me, is this is something we need to go out there almost on a weekly basis and not every other day. They just keep referring to make some of the property owners also accountable when they do the citation, when they need the leads and bills for the cleanup that they have to do. So we are currently doing all that. Follow-up question to that. I know we talked about this before. Is there any way to get away from camera black?
So I've actually reached out to some of our camera people, and I just haven't heard back from them yet about doing something with some cameras, because I have an idea for something, but I got to make sure we can do it. So, but just for some of your questions, one, I think this is actually the value of us meeting regularly and talking about some of this stuff, because really, you know, what Officer Stinson has started and some of this stuff is kind of a start, you know, and then let's see where that gets us. You got to keep in mind, every time when the police do things, well, whatever the objective or whoever the focus is, well, they're going to do something too, whether it's move or find another place or find somewhere that they think is a little more secure. And so we have to always be looking at our strategies, our tactics, to make sure, you know, we're doing the right thing. And we definitely don't want to do something that ultimately ends up harming the neighborhood. And that's where your input and everybody in here, y'all's input is critical to help us really hone those tactics in so we can get the best results. So, you know, I thank you for your input on that.
So when are we getting the first watch lieutenant for CBD?
Already assigned. It's well, we've had one for Central. That's Elliot Forge, but he's been doing so everybody knows you have Central, which is your bigger, and then kind of in the middle of it, there's CBD. CBD really offices out of police headquarters, where Central is over here on Hall Street. So we have a first watch lieutenant who got promoted today and will be here. I guess it may be here tonight. So starting at 10 p.m. Nathan
Swires.
Should I spell that?
SSWYERS.
I would have never gotten it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
So sort of back, I guess, to the code stuff, is with regard to property owners, is that type of stuff enhanceable? Like, will it escalate? Because the issue on that corner has been there for 10 years. I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, I would say that it's ramped up probably with the art calling kind of moving there, because there's more people there, but that corner has been an issue ever since I've lived in the Cedars. So if you're, you know, code violation, I mean, put a fence around it,
one of the things that we've done is we do suggest to put up a payment. We don't spend any more, we're going to give them a bigger fine. But one of the things we're doing is the city code allows the fines to be up to $2,000 for each speed violator. So one of the things I asked the inspectors to do when they write citation is note on their ticket that this is happening again. So instead of being charged $286 for a citation, hopefully the judge or the prosecutor take that into consideration and charge the $500 to $2,000 fine. Because I believe they get a citation for that amount. Instead of this, a big $2,000 fine, which I rather review. So this is the benefit of the prosecutor paying the fine.
Steve? Two questions. One for the chief, and one for Lieutenant Rivas. As a gain loss number of officers this year, net of hiring minus attrition, what will change in the staffing level of the department in your estimation? And my question for you is, as a user percentage, give me a number on an average moment in the CBD, how far below the recommended staffing level is the number of officers that are available within the CBD at any given moment? Not like, oh, hey, the bike guys are here, or, you know, something unexpected, but an average evening or an average morning, whenever, how does our staffing level relate to what, in your opinion, or in the department's opinion, would be the number of people who should be policing the Central Business District?
Steve, we've got an 80% staffing requirement, and that's across the city, all 7 substations, all the various watches. My shift on the evening shift downtown probably far much better than the other 2 shifts. I'm not to say that they're struggling or anything, but I'm usually at that 80%. So if we're going to get into the weeds in regards to numbers, I've got a total of, now I've lost some officers, not including Senior Corporal Sanger, who officially promoted today, but give or take, a round number, I've got 30 officers assigned to me on the evening shift. But then you have to take into consideration their various days off, because unfortunately in this line of work, not everybody is allowed to have Saturday and Sunday off like they would. So we have to stagger their days off, and that's all based on seniority. And then you have to figure in special assignments, say for academy classes that are much needed for training. So give or take, I would probably have anywhere from 14 to 16 officers daily in downtown and CBD any day of the week. More so, we try and staff up more heavier, especially on Fridays and Saturdays, because we know those are our busiest days. Most of my junior officers, they don't like it, but their days off right in the middle of the week. They're off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because I need them here on those heavy call load days. And if it's not the call load, it's the self-initiative activity that we're going to run into, either the quality of life issues or whether we get notified by Dallas Safety Patrol, who we work hand in hand with. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that does. I was just trying to.
Right.
I mean, I see more police officers rather than less, but there's an improvement in what I see going on around me. But I was just curious, I mean, I'm a data science guy. Right. Numbers. Right.
And before I let Chief Walton talk or comment, Linda, regarding the operations in the Cedars, you're right. Senior Corporal Stinson took the bull by the horns, and she reached out to me, and I was on board with it. So I asked my guys if they would be willing to assist her on that one afternoon, and I saw the results after 3.5 hours, because she personally emailed me, and there were 8 to 10 or maybe 12 arrests, which was fantastic. And then I heard you guys talk about how, we hit it one time and then we backed off a little bit, but I'll get with Ms. Stinson and we'll try and formulate a game plan where maybe we can hit a little bit more often, because if you only hit it one time and you back off, the problem is going to reoccur. But we'll put something into place where maybe we can bring in the paddy wagon a couple of times during the week, a little early, to help hit those spots. So Harwood and Corinth, 1900 block of Seeger, 2000 Seeger. Right. I'm well aware of it. I personally have even been spending more time in the Cedars. You've seen me in and around the Dallas Heritage Village.
Yes, I have a follow-up question on that. That naked guy is still there. the one that sleeps by the sheep's pen.
Okay, on the north side, on the surface
Yeah,
road?
the perimeter fence. So my question last month was to Officer Sonner about the MOU that TxDOT and the City of Dallas have with criminal trespass enforcement. Because it's on he's sleeping like on the fence of Dallas Heritage Village, which is, I think, city property owned by the Parks Department, I believe. And then, TxDOT is that jurisdiction, of course, adjacent to I-30. My understanding is that there's an MOU between TxDOT and the city about enforcement, that DPD can't actually enforce criminal trespass. But the only way I've been able to report it is through the 311 app, which means it goes to the Office of Home Solutions Crisis Intervention, and it becomes a homeless encampment. But at this point, I think it's criminal trespass. So DPD, I think, should be able to enforce on that, but I don't know what's going on with this MOU. There's a naked man, right next to a church.
I responded when you called and flagged me down.
Yeah.
He wasn't there. I don't know if somebody.
He's there still.
Oh, all right. Is this 6:30 to 8 o'clock at night usually?
Oh, he's there, all the time. I mean, he has like a couple umbrellas now, and he's been hanging his clothes up and stuff. And, he's not wearing them.
The sheep deserve to be called like too.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, anyway, so I'd like to see something done with that, because I think this is ongoing about 3 months now.
Let me look at it. I'll get with Ms. Stinson and we'll get something into place.
Okay.
But thanks for bringing it to my attention.
So he had asked a question and I didn't want to just kind of skirt around it, but I need to make sure I understand, kind of what you're asking.
You have X number of officers in the department right now. You're going to hire Y number of officers, and you're going to lose Z number of officers.
Mm-hmm.
What are and I know it's not the end of the year, we don't know yet, but from expectations, are we going to have more officers, or are we going to have less?
So, I think our early projection was we were going to probably still go down a little bit this year. And so I'm going to talk from when I was in personnel up until I got moved here to Central. And a lot of that has to do ultimately with how the pension got restructured, because it limited the amount of time an officer could do and drop. And so when I looked at that while in personnel, I anticipated an extra 50 officers leaving this fiscal year over what I would consider a more normal attrition because of that change. So the last I had heard, and again, I don't work in personnel, so I don't look at those numbers on a daily basis anymore. I think that's about what we're going to see is somewhere in a 230 to 250 number. I think we're going to have to wait and see on some of it because we really are in uncharted territory, and the way the pension was restructured, we still don't know how officers as a collective decide how to handle their retirements. Do you still stay beyond certain points where we saw a much older department? Now, is that going to change? So, but I think what we were looking at is even at this fiscal year, the next fiscal year, it should be, we should be in a much better place in regards to hiring versus attrition. Again, there's still some unknowns. What we're battling against right now is, last year we lost an unprecedented number of officers. I mean, that's well documented. And we didn't come anywhere close to hiring them. But really, when you lost this and you hired this, it's not as simple as that, because what you hired doesn't replace what walked out the door. What walked out the door, you had to hire over 18 months ago because of the time between when they're hired and they get through the academy and they get off training to then go take the place of whoever left. And ultimately, they don't necessarily take their place. They take the place of a senior officer who ultimately goes on to a position in, say, robbery or some other bureau where, you have much more seniority.
Concern you the amount of institutional knowledge that we're losing as we transition from veteran officers to trying to replace them with younger officers? I get that some of the younger officers, like these guys, I watch what they're doing over in Depot and uptown. get you get more enthusiasm, but you also lose some institutional knowledge. Is that a problem for us?
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you from even in the best of times, you worry about losing institutional knowledge because there's a lot of things that are geographically centered, or much like, say, knowing the history of Deep Ellum. You know, you can have somebody with 30 years on, but if they've never worked downtown or were exposed to it, they may not know some of the ins and outs of that. So that's always a concern, and that's where you see people. You'll see a lot of people moved around to try to get them a better base of understanding of different operations. But yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
2 quick items. First off, Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for being here. I know July is your hiatus month, and I really appreciate you doing this because we all know it all comes in. It's bad.
Do you get a hiatus?
I'm
just wondering.
And then my question for me is the juveniles. Is there anything we can do to mind the cooking?
So as far as
Enforcing the curfew of the kids that are running around Deep Ellum and or CBD.
so any, I mean, all officers can enforce the curfew, you know. So I mean, nobody's said don't enforce that. So they should be enforcing curfew violations. I walked, I guess a few weeks ago, I went out with some of the officers that were working in Deep Ellum, and they were looking for curfew violations too. Again, I'm no longer a good judge because, frankly, I go to the police academy and think they're all 16. And so I've lost a little perspective on what youth truly looks like. But we still are doing curfew type stuff. But if you're saying you're seeing more of that, we'll make sure we put more information out to officers to say, hey, make sure you're paying special attention, which we really try to do during the summer months anyway. But
Thank you.
absolutely.
That would be a great PSA for the department to have, that there is actually a curfew and that it is going to be enforced so that parents know, oh yeah, I need to pay attention to my kids.
So we can talk to our PIO office about seeing if, you know, maybe a video or something gets put on our Facebook page. You know, they could blast it out to the media. It's up to them whether they want to cover it or not. So, well, right behind you, sir. You had a question? Yes, sir.
I'm one of the street vendors down in Deep Ellum.
Yes, sir.
It was a major concern for what I can do now. They go from the West End Station all the way down to Deep Ellum, and it's like on a constant basis. I'm there Thursday through Sunday, so I see a lot. I just don't say they don't belong down there, honestly. Like, if it's an establishment for entertainment, like, if they can't buy no beer, what's their purpose for being in that neighborhood? Some of them got no t-shirts on, some of them ain't got no shoes on, you know? So what's their purpose? I mean, before it escalated to something, because you gotta understand the generation now, like, they don't have no understanding. They're not trying to hear it. Like a month ago, they walked around tasing people just with no reason, you know? So I feel like it should be a curfew down in Deep Ellum, honestly. And it really is a concern. I'm a street vendor out there, just speaking from a street perspective, you know, I ride my bike during the daytime, but I do think for my reason, for my own safety, but, you know, I just feel like it should be cracked down a whole lot. This could weed a whole lot out, you know. They don't belong down there at 11 and 12 at night, you know. So.
And that's where, because the curfew, you know, that stuff we can do, but just their mere presence outside of that, you know, we're limited by the laws that are on the book. That's what the police department does. Anything outside of that, you know, is outside of our, you know, really our powers to deal with. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You know, a lot of juveniles are coming out at the guard station, so that would be guards responsibility, correct?
Yes.
How is that relationship going right now?
because I know, to follow his question, I witnessed a fight yesterday with 20 plus teens. They were screaming some sort of
World Star.
They were videotaping and women lying at each other. And, everyone's just sort of standing there, but when it's on dark property, I mean, it seems like we've had the same conversation for several years with the dark police relationship. What's happening with that? I mean, has anything changed? It seems like it's operating in the same manner.
Well, I guess from my perspective, we have a very good relationship, with DART. We share information. They share information with us. If we're aware of something that's occurring on their that's not of an immediate emergency, we make sure they know so they can address those issues. I know they were working on a plan to try to have people at a lot of the different stations, and probably the best thing to do is actually have somebody from DART maybe attend next month. So
currently handling the large juveniles, how is it currently being enforced? And what is currently being done?
I mean, it goes back to what even the street you're talking about, Seeger. If it's not constantly enforced, it's going to be that way, and so it has to be constantly enforced. You have to run these kids out. You have to get them, send them on their way. They're trained. Where are you going?
It's 20. At what point do you?
That's the problem. And I've seen it. I'm not going to walk down there. It's scary sometimes.
Certainly, there's got to be some sort of action plan, right?
DART used to come. I know you don't know, but DART used to be here, and maybe you could reach out to them and say that they need to show up here.
Yeah, I'll call. We'll get back in touch with DART to come.
Say, hey, they need to be here.
They did ask for our assistance yesterday out there because there were a lot of kids up there. I didn't personally go out there and tell you the digital, but I did hear that call. So they did ask for our help out there.
So, and that's where if you see a large group, gathering, you can call the police and say, hey, I think something's happening here, so we can send officers out there, to see what's going on. And hopefully, our mere presence is enough to break them up. I know CBD spends a lot of time around the DART stations.
Under staff, we had several people call, and 15, 20 minutes later, no one had arrived. And look at all the police that are across this right there, right?
That's disappointing because a couple of months ago, DART said that they were increasing their presence at the West End and that they would have officers there, maybe not 24 hours a day, but a good portion of the day. So I would be curious to see, did that change? Did that promise not?
That's why I can't speak for DART, and that's why I think it's fair to make sure, ask them to, hey, can you attend next month so y'all can, have the questions.
So, since you can't speak for DART, surely you can speak for Dallas Police Department. You wouldn't honestly sit there and tell us that you think DART does a good job, do you? I mean, those guys, that shit's useless. They might as well disband them and give their money to you. Give Lieutenant Reeves some more guys. Get some more guys like them that want to go over there and kick ass. DART's not doing shit. There's no sense in pretending they're doing anything. They're milling around checking their Twitter feed to see how many likes they got. That's what they do. I watch them. I walk back and forth through the West End every day. I've lived here for years and years. Oh, the statistics mean nothing to me. I watch what goes on down here. I walk all over. All these people, I've known them for years. They know that DART's not doing anything. On some level, and this is not on you, this is on you, who I love, but on some level, you guys got to hold DART accountable. Have Dominique and have Patrick and have whoever you're appointing go over there and go, hey man, this shit's not working. Either get somebody down here that can do the job, or let's go back to Scott Griggs' idea to cut your funding and figure out how to use it more productively. But there's no one that can stand around and say DART's doing a good job of any type of police work around the stations in the central business district. They may have Plano on lockdown. I'm sure it's all looking great over at Mockingbird Station, but in the CBD, it's a shit show. Every day, all day long. It starts about 6 o'clock, as soon as the shelters empty out. As soon as the kids can catch the train into their job, committing crimes in the CBD. unemployment's way down because they've got jobs committing crimes. CBD, they drive to work over in Range neighborhood and start screwing shit up. But there's not a world where Dart's doing a good job with the stations. Just, no.
And also, the train is seen as a getaway, you know, when purses are stolen, that they run to the Dart station. And that's, you know, considered a safety zone.
I don't know if this covers this area, but could you comment a little bit on what is going on with over at Madrona School, the situation that we have, the 4,400 block after?
I can't. I don't know. I just what I told you, that was an update.
Okay.
But I believe the guy was arrested. I think that's what happened. But I think there's a gang war going on over there. I think the shooting that happened in North Lawn Heights was related to that. And then also the shooting that started a block from my house was related to that. So it's been over maybe 8 months, 9 months. And but I believe there's warrants out for some people's arrest. Okay. And we're just they haven't caught them yet.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Something that might be helpful, this individual that is filming this conversation, maybe we could email this video. You can give us your information, and we'll email it to the entire DART board, maybe some of the board of DART, the representatives of DART, and maybe that will help kind of start the conversation as well. That'd be great.
So can we do that?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chief. I know not everyone's here from downtown, but if I could take a minute and have Chardonnay here pass out our new app. It's a pattern that I know you all were playing with dark for a minute, but the new app, we started it last Friday. 250 people opt in. We're getting 65 reports per week. Homeless individuals. We're taking that workload off of DVD for those type nuisance type crimes, of sleepers, panhandlers, things of that nature. Finally, get you to drop those off to y'all. Again, it's a great opportunity for y'all in the CBD to report when you have an issue downtown, whether it's trash, homelessness, you name it, whatever. We're partnered with our calling to. We also engage the homeless population, and I think year to date with our calling, we've sent home 180 people home on bus tickets that to their home states, families that are willing to receive them. So again, you can use this app. If you're in the downtown area, sorry, Cedars, and you know, we're collaborating with them, but right now we're focused on that. Thank you very much.
Quick question, sir. I'm sorry. I know you're partnering with our calling. Our calling is with Cedars. So
our calling, the way we partner with our calling is we ask people need a bus ticket home, whether they're from the Cedars area or downtown. We fund $60,000 a year to purchase those bus tickets to those individuals that are eligible for family reunification.
Okay, and you funded with funding from our
From the downtown, these are individuals that are in the downtown area, but they are coordinated through our calling.
They get our calling, we reach out to the family, and we make sure that person gets onto the bus, drive them over to the bus, and we'll do. We did 7 people this week already.
What happens? What?
If they don't get on the bus.
We don't give them the ticket until they get on the bus.
So, have you partnered with the Office of Homeless Solutions on this?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, so far this year, 70% of our homeless reunification has been through Homeless Solutions.
That's the Office of the City of Dallas?
Absolutely. That's 8 caseworkers that we partner with. We go out visiting campus twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to engage those individuals again in the downtown area, not in the Cedars. We engage those individuals and we purchase their bus tickets to get them home.
Mark brought up panhandling. Have there any results from the panhandling initiative which was recently started?
I can ask. I don't have any.
And I want to jump to another individual topic about that today. We started this initiative about panhandling. while sitting in the parking lot at 7-Eleven on Lamar, I saw a high-ranking police officer not only give money to a panhandler, he had food to a panhandler. And that franchisee is working really, really hard to keep panhandlers off that property. And I was just very pissed off that a high-ranking police officer gave this guy stuff, and he went around the corner and just sat there and ate it. It was infuriating, the amount of money and effort that people have gone into this program. And then here's a cop doing it. So after the cop did it, then some lady gave the guy money too because she saw the officer do it. And that was just very frustrating to me today. And he was in a blue-colored car. It wasn't used as I used it. And so it just seems counterproductive that the high-ranking officers aren't enforcing this program and then you expect everyone else to. And now that guy's going to stay there because he thinks it's okay because an officer gave him money. And then the property or the franchisee owner now has to deal with that guy that's bothering off his other patrons. And again, we just haven't heard anything about the results of that TSA program. It has been effective, and people work on that for months.
It's disappointing. I really hope that the mayor, the PPP Broadmax, and all the city council members would come out and do a press conference to kind of launch the program and give it some publicity. So
I know that I did a video and I haven't seen it. I went out there and it was hot. And I did
They
it.
had a few council members do videos, but they're reworking the way they're going to do the program. I think what's happened is they got a lot of feedback from homeless service providers, and that did not like the program, and from people that did not like the program. And they didn't get enough feedback from those of us who want panhandling to decrease. And unfortunately, I think the program has been swayed and probably softened quite a bit. I hope that's not true.
I'll find out.
Let us know.
Oh.
We can certainly get a letter writing campaign going.
Oh, I know. I'll find out.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for clarification on the homeless providers, we sit with a group of about 12, and everybody in that group is firmly against panhandling.
I know like Larry James City Square is not anti-panhandling, and unfortunately NDHA quite frequently promotes articles on their Facebook page that demonizes the people who are anti-panhandling.
Larry James, professional panhandler.
So I think the city needs to, if we're going to have the program, I would love to see the city come out in support of the city staff who's working on the program.
Thank you.
All right. Tanya, do you have another question?
Oh, absolutely. That's excellent money, North Dallas, so they can keep it all here. And a lot of people do that.
Yes, ma'am.
If you had 2 or 3 things that you had a suggestion for the people in this room of how they can better support you, I mean, I know you're in the hot seat, right? You get sent in and you hear all of this each month. What can be done to help you? Is it writing a cheap call? Is it, we already talked about contacting all the dark people. What can we do? Because clearly what we're doing already isn't enough. Beyond calling 911 and 311, and what is your recommendation at this point?
Look, I'm going to be honest. I wish I had all the answers. I wish I could say this will deal with a lot of the quality of life, particularly surrounding the homeless and the panhandling and the street feeding. I'm telling you, I wish I knew the answers. But I truly struggle with it just like y'all do. I mean, there's not any good, solid answer. I've been in meeting after meeting, where different strategies have been talked about. And unfortunately, although everybody in here may be fairly like-minded, there's always counterpoints, and other people that have different thoughts. And, the police department, we're responsible for really everything. And we have to be careful with what we do because, you know, we're in a unique profession where we have the ability to use force to enforce the laws that have been passed and supported really by the public through their politicians. And so that's our role in society, is to do that. And if we can't go beyond that because that's not what you want.
I don't think anybody here is asking for anything more than the laws to be enforced and laws to be followed.
Chief,
So-
if I could I?
Go ahead, absolutely.
Chief, I know Ms. Reagan, we've talked several times. And the number one issue, Ms. Reagan, where I wish we could go back 6, 9, 10 months ago whenever the law changed, where it was a municipal court judge who gave a legal opinion that it was no longer illegal for these panhandlers to panhandle in front of 7-Elevens, regardless of where they're at, Cedars, Deep Ellum, CBD. When that tool was taken away with us because this municipal court judge deemed it as an infringement on the individual's First Amendment rights, that really hurt. That really, really hurt. And I say that because before we were able to pick off these panhandlers using covert officers, they would set up, you know, at various 7-Elevens. I know Tom's store at 2600 Elm gets killed any day of the week, more so on the weekend, and I see the calls holding regarding the panhandlers. But, you know, that tool was taken away from us. I don't know whether we need to go to state legislatures asking them for assistance, because the only way, as we as a police department have any teeth to enforce this now, is if the guys actually get in the roadway and dart back. But we have to be there to one view that. And it's very, very difficult when we're going from call to call to call, and I've got my covert guys trying to target the K2 epidemic, trying to go after the sellers. But when they had some downtime, it was very, very easy for them to go set up across the street, make a case or two on these two individuals, call the uniforms for the takedown, the arrest would be made, and these guys would be hauled off. Now they'd be hauled off on a Class C for solicitation. It sent a message. You know, the jails were only going to hold them for 6, 8 hours and then release them. But these guys always thought twice about, you know what, I better not go back to that 7-Eleven because I don't want to get rearrested. But this happened about 7 to 8 months ago when they took away our ability to enforce that. And since then, like I said, it's very, very difficult for us to set up and watch somebody dart into the middle of the street, knock on somebody's window and come back as it was, you know, 8, 9 months ago when we were able to take these guys off. And you asked, I'm giving you an answer. I wish we could have that change. I've seen the increase of people hanging out at the various 7-Elevens downtown, Elm and Ackerd. Of course, 2600 Elm Street is always hot. But yeah, that really, really hurt us when they took that tool away from us.
But the only thing I would add to that is, frankly, a year ago, with that still in the books, we could be having the same conversation. You know, there's still problems panhandling, regardless of how it gets enforced. You know, there are some issues, you know, out there that it's not, the police are the ones that are called, but we're not equipped to deal with mental illness. You know, and that I think is what we see a lot of. Yes, you have people that are service resistant, who don't want to go to a shelter. They don't want to even take the food from the shelter. They're going to wait for somebody to come by and hand it to them. I wish the people who did some of that could see some of the downstream consequences of what they're doing, because I think they're all good-hearted people, or they wouldn't do that. But I don't think they see the downstream consequences. If there was a way to do that in a good manner, I think that would be helpful. But ultimately, you know, the mental health issue, I think, is and I think most people would agree, that's a huge underlying problem, and in the police department, it's not fully equipped to deal with that to the degree it needs to be dealt with.
just gonna add something really quick. I think ultimately the goal would be to decentralize the homeless services downtown, and in the greater downtown area, Cedars. What we're seeing is more homeless coming, and homeless providers and churches and ministries are getting bigger and bigger, and so more and more are coming. But right now on the table, the Office of Homeless Solutions is trying to put forth a strategy with the purpose of decentralizing, and that's what everybody needs to write to Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Adam Medrano, the Office of Homeless Solutions, that's what you support, is the decentralization. Now, an aspect of that the Office of Homeless Solutions is trying to do that's counter to that purpose is to add 150 beds in the Bridge and Dallas Life, which is the Cedars. So you guys write to Office of Homeless Solutions and Adam Medrano supporting decentralization so that these providers don't get bigger and bigger, and then we're overwhelming Dallas Police Department with people who need mental health services, not, prayer circle or somebody to feed them on the street or whatever. So that's something that we can do and to write, make your voice heard, because that presentation is going to council August 1st, right, on Wednesday. Yeah, and that's just a briefing, and they vote the 22nd, right? Okay.
Well, I think it's also important to know there is a big difference between homeless and professional panhandlers. And professional panhandlers is the source very high. The city manager's office told me 7 months ago, the average professional panhandler is earning $700 cash tax-free per day. That's a heavy incentive to dress and look the part and act like you're homeless.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with that just real quick, because I want to make sure there's, I think, 3 things we owe you for the next meeting. 1, we're going to try to get a representative from DART here. 2, researching on the what it's going to take to use the enhancements for PI arrest. 3, expanding what we're doing in the Cedars already to look at a couple of other locations, and particularly the problem locations. Is there anything I've missed?
The MOU with TxDOT?
And the TxDOT, about that MOU with TxDOT.
Hey Chief, if I may just talk on some of the Facebook stuff real quick. It'll only take 5 minutes. Just like last month, we've made 4 felony arrests at the last Crime Watch based on information provided on our page. So again, we're keeping our average about 1 a week. Just some stats from our group, we're up to 1,496 members, and out of those, 1,369 are active daily. We have almost 9,500 types of engagement in the last month. That includes 6,871 reactions, 2,328 comments, and 249 posts. So we're getting a lot of activity on our Facebook page, and it's generating a lot of good stuff. So we aren't seeing a lot of quality of life issue arrests coming out of the DL anymore, because I think that they've started to figure out this isn't going to be tolerated, but we have started to shift gears to more investigative and long-term kind of strategies on arresting people. So we arrested on July 17th the Green Towel Bandit, and I think that cleared 5 burglaries in Central, possible 6. So he had basically on the 17th, because we've been providing that stuff, one of the citizens called 911 and said, "Hey, I saw this guy at Harwood and Commerce at 7-Eleven, matching the description that we've been putting out on the page." We went down to look for him, but they didn't. We couldn't locate him. He was last seen going towards the Cedars. At approximately 8 p.m., we put out some information from some officers, Gregory and Yee at CBD, located Carl Sanders at 1700 Bluebell in the Cedars, matching the description. We had been made aware that on the page that he had been involved in several burglaries throughout the Deep Ellum and Central area. When the citizen notified us of the guy at Harwood, he gave us a description. I passed that on to Gregory and Yee, and they found Mr. Sanders over there. After they stopped him, after a brief investigation, we determined that he was Carl Sanders. He had 2 active felony warrants for burglary from 2 burglaries committed in Central, 5 alias warrants, and a capious warrant. He was arrested, and then through investigation, he was still wearing the same clothes he committed those other 3 burglaries. we had him on video surveillance that was on our page. So we contacted the detective and he walked the warrant the next morning. So, I mean, the stuff is working. Even though we may not get the guy, I mean, I know Ivan, the owner of Moonshine, which kind of started this whole investigation, was rather upset that we weren't able to respond as quickly as we could to that burglary. As long as you continue to provide us information, we are working towards getting these guys in jail. So I just wanted to credit Officers Loman, Taylor Smith, Destiny Bailey, Kyle Gregory, Krasansky Yee, Likwar, Jeanette Stinson, and my partner Boho and myself, I guess, who all participated in the capture and intelligence collection throughout the about 2 or 3 week period to catch this guy. Pretty much cleared most of the burglary offenses we've had in the last 2 months in Central. I think it's a large portion of it. That's all I have for the picture.
Thank you.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.